history, and today we are going to read about what books and burials tell us. It is chapter 4 of NCRT Class 6 Standards. So let's begin. So our agenda today is to know about one of the oldest books in the world. We have to know, we will be knowing about cattle, horses, and chariots that were used back then and for what purpose they were used, and the words that were used to describe people in the society. We will be reading about the story of Megalith, and we will be reading a special burial site at Inamgaon that is there. Okay, so let's move ahead. So the Vedas. Vedas is one of the oldest books in the world. And there are four types of Vedas. There is Rig Ved, there is Sam Ved, there is Yajur Ved, there is Atharva Ved. Okay. Now Rig Ved is considered to be one of the oldest Ved amongst all of the Vedas, and it has been composed around 330, around 3500 years ago. And this Ved contains thousands of hymns. These hymns were being composed by both men and women, but mostly men, and they are called suttas. Suttas mean a well said. Okay, and these hymns were dedicated to various gods and goddesses, and specifically three of the gods are found to be of more importance in the Vedas, in the Rig Veda. That is the Agni, the god of fire, Indra, a warrior god, and Soma, a plant from which a special drink was prepared. Okay, so the most of the hymns that were composed were being taught and learned. Just like just consider this fact that you are listening to this video and one of your friend comes to you and he says or she asks that what you have learned in this video. So you will be telling all of this. Okay. So what you are doing is you are passing the information from what you have learned to the other, and then that person will retain some of the information and then he or she will pass on. So in the similar manner, the Vedas were not written down, and it was very later on that they were being written down and then they were printed. Firstly, people used to just they used to hear, because we know that these are called as sutras. That is well said. People used to hear it, people used to recite it, and then they will used to learn it. Okay, and pass it to one person to another. So the Rig Veda were written in Vedic Sanskrit, and we know that the Vedic Sanskrit is completely different from what kind of Sanskrit that we read today in school. So let's dig deeper into Sanskrit language and some of the other languages into the world. We know in India we have different languages. In every state, different languages spoken. Okay, so let's know about Sanskrit and the other languages. Do you know that Sanskrit is actually a part of a family of languages that is known as Indo-European? And Indo-European, as in there are some Indian languages such as Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri, and Sindhi. And there are some Asian languages such as Persian and many European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian, and Spanish. They all belong to this family of Indo-European. Okay, and why they are called to be a family? Because they originally had a word in common. For example, just take this example. Is a word matra in Sanskrit, ma in Hindi, mother in English. So they all have a word in common, and that is why they belong to one family. Okay. In a similar manner, there are some other languages uh, who are considered to be belonging to different families. For example, those used in the northeast belong to Tibeto-Burman family, and the languages like Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam, they belong to Dravidian family. And the language spoken in Jharkhand, parts of central India, they belong to which family? Austroasiatic family. Okay, all right. I hope it's clear. Now, how the historians study Rig Veda? Okay, so many of the hymns that, or some of the hymns that are there in Rig Veda, we know that are written in the form of a dialogue. So here is one of the examples where Vishwamitra is here and he is in dialogue with two of the rivers, that is Beas and Satluj, and they were worshipped as a goddesses. I have already said that these hymns were dedicated to gods and goddesses. So here are two rivers who were worshipped as goddesses, and Vishwamitra is in conversation with them. So let's read the conversation. So Vishwamitra is telling, O rivers, come down from mountains like two swift horses, like two shining cows that lick their calves. You move like chariots to the sea, through the power of Indra. You are full of water and wish to unite with one another. And then rivers are responding back. They are saying, we who are full of water move along the path the gods have made for us. Once we start flowing, we cannot be stopped. Why do you pray to us, O sea? And then Vishwamitra is continuing and he's saying, O sisters, please listen to me. The singer who has come from a distance with his chariots and carts, let your water not rise above our axles, so that we can cross safely. And then the ultimately rivers are saying that we will listen to your prayers so that we cross safely. So from this conversation, what all you can decode. So historians have decoded and suggested that the the two animals that are being mentioned over here and rivers have been actually personified in terms of animals like horses and cows. So you can suggest that it can be suggested that these animals were very valuable and were considered to be of utmost significance to the people of that society. Okay, and also you can know that this conversation must have taken place near the river where there were their rivers these rivers were. Okay, and also from this you can know about that what all facility in terms of transport were there, like they had chariots, they had cars. Okay, and other rivers were also mentioned like Indus and its tributary Ganga and Yamuna. And here is a picture of a manuscript of Rig Ved and which has been written on a birch bark. We know about manuscript. What is manuscript? Manuscript is something that is written. Either on they were written in leaves or birch or bark of a tree. So again, here is a Rig Ved which has been written on birch bark and it is found in Kashmir 150 years ago. And today it is preserved in a library of Pune that is okay. Now let's know more about these cattle, horses and chariots. So we know there were so many hymns that were there mm, for the cattle, for the children, for the horses. Why the horses were used? So horses obviously they were used in the battles, and the purpose of these battles were different. I mean, for different reasons, the battles were used to be conducted, and battles were either fought for land, they were either fought for water, or also sometimes to capture people and cattle. Because the person or the ruler who won the battle, they used to capture the people, and then those people become their das or dasi. Okay, there was, however, no regular army was not there. It was just that assembly was conducted and people came together and they used to discuss the matter about war and peace. And mostly men took part in war and they choose their leaders. Okay. And after winning the battle, wealth was kept by the leaders and some of the things or some of the loots were given to the priests or the rest were distributed amongst the people. All right. Now, let's look at what was the word that was used to describe the people in the Rig Veda. So, there were two groups who were described in terms of their work. For example, there is priests. So, priests were called to be Brahmins. And what these Brahmins used to do, they used to perform various rituals. Then there were Rajas. Then these Rajas, however, they did not have capital cities, palaces, or armies, nor did they collect any kind of a tax and also their sons did not automatically succeeded fathers as Rajas. Because later on we would see the rulers and the king that who would come, their eldest son would automatically succeed that throne. However, in the Vedic period, we see that sons did not automatically succeed as father as well. And then there are other words to describe people or the community as a whole. So one was used that was Jana, and the other was Vish. And the word Vaishya came from this particular word Vish. Okay. And the people who were composing these hymns, okay. because we know that men and women both were composing these things. Mostly men were composing, and the men call themselves to be Aryas, and their opponents, okay, those who were not reading these Vedas or writing those hymns, they called them to be Das or Dastis. However, later on, the connotation or the meaning of these Dasas and Dastis changed, and it came to be known as slaves. Okay, so slaves were basically men and women who were captured in the war. All right, moving ahead. So let's read about the story of Megalith. So the from word itself, you can break down the word, and you can understand what megalith is. Mega means something big, something huge. Let's we know as when we read about Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, letters mean stone. Okay, so megaliths are big stones which are basically which were used by people to mark their burial sites. Okay, so burials used to happen, and wherever people buried their family members, they used to erect one of the megaliths or the huge stone, and they marked that. Okay, just as we see today in the Christian community or Muslim community, people bury and there is a stone or a tomb over there from which we can know that, okay, this is the burial site of this particular person. Okay. As for the practice of this erecting megaliths, it began 3000 years ago, and it was prevalent throughout the Deccan, South India, in the Northeast, and in Kashmir. And all these burials had some common features because the dead were buried with distinctive spots which were called as black and red wear. Okay. And here some of the things were found in at the megalith site in the megalithic burials. Here you can see the left top. Here it is an horse equipment. These are some axes, and here is a dagger. And now here is a megalith type. See, this type of megalith is actually known as cyst, okay, like the one shown here. And they have portholes which could be used as an entrance. All right, moving ahead. So can we know from the burial sites that there were social differences? How can we know? So let's look at it. So we know that objects were found with the skeletons, and archaeologists think that these objects may have belonged to that person. Obviously, if they are being buried with the person, so it is suggested that that object belonged to that person only. Okay, so how could we identify from the burial site that this person belonged to a higher strata in the society and this person belonged in a lower strata? So the rich people were actually buried with more gold beads, stone beads, copper, bangles, and etc. Whereas if you look at the burial site of the poor people, they are also burying some of the objects, but some normal things like few pots. Okay, in this map, you can see some green circular things. These sites are the megalithic sites, like the Magiri is here, and again this is here. So these are the megalithic sites. And later on, we will be studying about a place called Inamgaon, the burial site at Inamgaon. So Inamgaon is located over here. Just look at it. Okay, moving ahead. So the question is, were some burial spots meant for certain families? Like if one family is being buried here, so their family members will only be buried there. Was it something like that? So people belonging to the same family were buried at the same place. Yes, it was something like that. That people who belong to the same family, they buried in the same place. Okay, and the stone circles and the boulders were placed on the surface as a signpost so that they can find the burial site and can return back whenever they wanted to. All right. Now, as I said, we will be looking at a burial site of Inamgaon. So we have located in the map the Inamgaon. So it is a site on the river Ghor, and Ghor, it is a tributary of Bhim. And do you know what is the tributary of Ganga is called? I have already taught this in the previous chapters. So comment in the comment section below, and then moving. Here, adults were buried in the ground. They were laid out straight. So there was a particular pattern in which the persons were buried over here. The their their head used to face north. Okay, they were just not randomly buried. They were laid out in a straight with the head facing towards north, and the vessels were probably, it contained food and water. And archaeologists have also found seeds of wheat, barley, rice, pulses, millet, peas, and sesame. So from this, it is being suggested that they cultivated all of these in agriculture. And also, it has been found that there has been cuts in bones of many animals. So it is suggested that they used to eat animals as well. Fruits such as bud, amla, jamun, dates, and variety of berries were also used as fruit. Okay. So at Inamgaon, you know all of these information that people are eating all these crops are there. They are eating fruit. They are eating animals, and they are burying their burials in a certain manner. Okay, let's look at somewhere else. Okay, the burial pattern. So here is one of the you know one of the evidence from China that is from around 3,500 years ago. And you can see something is written. And this was written on a stone, sorry, on an animal bone called oracle, because they were used to predict the future. Do you know what scribes are? I have already taught in the previous chapter. Scribes are someone who used to write on steel. Okay, and who were present. So kings used to hire them, and these scribes used to write certain things on those stones or bones which the king asked. For example, the king asked, would they win the battle or not? Would the harvest be good or not? Would they have sun or not? So they used to write all of that, and then they used to do what? They used to put that bone into the fire, and then later on, when it cracked, they read and predicted the future. However, they made mistakes as well. So the kings in the China, they used to live in palaces in the cities, and they had huge amount of wealth. That included elaborately decorated bronze vessels. However, iron was not known to them. Okay, and previously, we were just looking at the burials and the and skeletons. So, what all we can decode and study from the burial site if we are finding any kind of a skeleton? Can we know that this is the skeleton of a child, this is a skeleton of a male or female? So, obviously, from the size, we can decode that okay, this is a skeleton of a child. But can we know from a skeleton that this is a skeleton of male or female? So from modern science, we can decode the skeletons from by studying the pelvic area, because you know that pelvic area of females are larger than that of the male. And why it is larger? Because female have to bear children, and that is why their pelvic area is larger. So from that we can decode that this is a skeleton of female. Okay, and 2000 years ago, one physician was there, Charak, and he wrote Charak Samhita. And he wrote a book on medicine. And it was Charak Samhita. And in that, he stated that human body had 360 bones. Okay. However, this is much larger than 200 bones that are recognized in our modern anatomy. What he did was Charak actually arrived at this figure of 360 bones by counting all the things like teeth. He counted teeth, joints, and cartilages as well. Okay. I hope it's clear. And here are some important dates that we have just read all about and that are there in this chapter that you have to remember. That the beginning of the composition of the Vedas happened about 3,500 years ago, and the beginning of the buildings of megaliths happened about 3,000 years ago, and settlement and Inamgao that just we read, it happened between 3,600 and 2,700 years ago. And Charak wrote Charak Samhita about 2,000 years ago. Alright, thank you so much for listening to this. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and please do not forget to subscribe. Thank you so much.